Welcome to the General Resonance Theory YouTube channel. Today, we have a presentation on biological antenna electromagnetic resonances in biomaterials by Professor Kanand Ray with the Amity School of Applied Sciences. We now join this talk already in progress.
Antennas and resonators, and then also the biomimic antennas, the other way around. So as I told, I am from Calcutta, and where Rabindranath Tagore lived, the young, when Tagore was young, that photo and Einstein. This is the campus, Amity University Rajasthan campus, where I work. This is in Jaipur, which is known as the Pink City, one of the uh, hot, tourist spot, and all of you are welcome here. Obviously, now it is lockdown, but once the Corona uh, problem is over, because right now we are working from our home, but it will be, and hopefully near future it will be okay. So this is, this is the desert. Yes, yes. So this
I
is
was
the,
just saying it's beautiful.
sorry.
I was
Okay,
just saying it's very nice. It's lovely.
Yes, yes, yes. The point is, this is the desert one, and you can see the green lavish. This is the just the mountain, the hill, just below the hilltop. Okay, the campus is like that. It is almost 250 acre land there. You can see the water and the greenery is there, which is not very easy to maintain in the desert area. Okay, so we like our campus, and you all are welcome here. And this is another view. Okay, so little bit of the background of this reverse engineering, because when we talk about the human brain, and this is the arguably the most delicate instrument, we are trying to replicate these. We have to, we are trying to mimic it, so that the reverse engineering, of this brain, bring about some technologies, that trigger another industrial revolution. So this is the order of the day, as you know, in India, which is part of the Asia, the third world part here. Obviously, we we are concentrating on basically the theoretical research and all this. But as such, I am basically from a theory person, from physics, theoretical physics, but we're collaborating with people with experimental backgrounds all over the world, and we have established some MOUs with our university, University of Montreal, NIMS, Japan, where Dr. Anwar Bandyopadhyay is one of my collaborators. So we have also established MOUs there. So we used to send our students there, and they are working there in their labs and all this. Okay, so talking about the brain, it was 2,500 years back when Hippocrates, he knew that this is the one which is responsible for the joys, delights, all the emotions, okay, and griefs and despondency and lamentation. So man ought to know that from nothing else but the brain comes joy, delights, laughter, and sports, and follows griefs, despondency, and lamentations. So we are made of these nerve cells and associated molecules. Then, but what about that? So, as Lewis Carroll's Alice might have phrased it, we are nothing but a pack of neurons. And in the first, stage, I tried to model that neuron, that the transmission line model, which we would little bit discuss in this lecture about. Uh, so how do the operations of the conscious mind emerge out of the specific interactions of myriads of neurons? How do the elemental feelings and sensations making a conscious experience, that redness of red and painfulness of pain, arise from the concerted actions of nerve cells and their associated synaptic and molecular processes? Okay, that is the point. How not all the operations of the brain correspond to consciousness. Consciousness involves some form of memory, probably a very short-term one, and consciousness is closely associated with attention. So, but how we can approach? That's why we are modeling all these things, and we feel this resonance because in our one of our models, particularly the nested rhythm. We believe in the nested rhythm that we have developed the later stage. Okay, so here I will come to that in the final stage. What we are doing in last 2 3 years about the nested rhythms, the molecules, the neurons, the microtubules, where the different layers and they couple together, and some synchrony is there, which is responsible for some emerging, some when you perceive something, when you sense something, that is in a scientific manner how we can translate that. So for an initial scientific act, it usually pays to concentrate on the form that appears easiest to study. A visual system is such one. Okay. So, but how this, we do not know that physics, chemistry, molecular biology, we do not know even in outline how our brains produce the vivid visual awareness that we take so much for granted. Okay. So we can glimpse fragments of the processes involved, but we lack both the detailed information and the ideas to answer the most simple question. How do I see color? What is happening when I recall the image of a familiar place? So there must be some structures or operations in the brain that in some mysterious way behave. To approach this difficult question, we have to know something about what the task of seeing involves and about the biological apparatus inside our heads that does the job. Now, some new inventions will surely deepen the understanding of the scientific rules that govern nature. We see a CPU, a proton that can survive in the changing environment. So brain-line computing with all the molecular neurons. Beyond Turing, because I'll come to that later on, because we do not believe that it could be the brain could be one Turing machine because of some constraints and all those things. We'll come to that later on. The nano brain, which Dr. Bandabhadai is actually making there in NIMS lab, is trying to concentrate on this nano brain aspect, and the microtubules and the artificial organic replication condensation. I will not go into that, but the microtubules, because in 2010, Dr. Bandabhadai, they had experimented with microtubules. Microtubules, they are communicating through some wireless communication, and they are behaving like antennas. Okay, so I also discussed, we discuss about this resonance peaks, and we also try to theoretically explain the origin of these peaks in some later paper. I will also show that paper this year also that we will publish this paper. Okay, so the scientific community is divided into two groups. First group believes given enormous speed and computing power, an advanced form of Turing machine could download a human brain. Second, no machine can ever replicate the brain. Okay, and the third group is gradually developing that the successful adventure of human race to understand its own decision-making machine or brain, the space-time metric generated by a neuron by harnessing the imaginary space and time needs to be resolved. We are working on these. A lot of current works are going on in this direction. Now, why
When you say we, is this your group with Honorbon that you're part of?
No, this initial parts are these things we have done. It is prior to the work we did with Honorbon. So I would concentrate in the second part of this lecture. Some of these parts in collaboration we have done with Honorbon, but these parts are not done with Honorbon. So I will explain those things initially.
Thank
okay,
you.
so one was not part of this part, this portion. So because the brains have limitations regarding precision, amount of memory, and they die after some time, they cannot be treated as real Turing machines. But the question is whether this description is effective to treat the nervous systems. Although in some cases the nature of computation is understandable, it cannot account for the way the nervous system behaves to revise its instruction set as a function of input. So one has to consider the free will it requires one part of the brain to prepare some plans which could be executed later. But one need not be conscious about the computation, but only the decisions which depend on genes, experience, and interaction with the environment. Okay. So if machine can recall such decisions, it can appear to have free will. So our vision on the brain, because before going into
Sorry,
that,
can I
Yes.
stop you there? Just go back to the previous slide.
Just a minute.
You said a very provocative thought, which was that if a machine can recall the past, it may have free will.
This one,
Yeah.
this point, yes.
If a machine can recall its
Free
own
will.
decision,
Sorry, yes.
can you just explain what
Okay,
you mean by
so,
that?
you see, this free will, because we are, as we told that we are talking about the Turing machine, okay, but we maybe it is possible that it is beyond computation. Okay, maybe it is possible that it is beyond computation. So I will discuss about this later on. That maybe there is some envelope. We do not do it consciously, or there is no mathematics. It could be beyond mathematics. But what we have in the form of that I will describe about some block waves to describe. Maybe it is some higher higher order envelopes we are getting, which is reducing to the block waves, which is being coupled with the system. Okay, so that there lies the some kind of memory information and something like that. So I'll explain this point later on, little bit.
Okay.
So okay, so this part is this. Whenever we have some free will, we are made of. See, I am trying to catch hold of something. The point is, who am I? The machine is trying to get hold of the molecular system inside us, the protons, the electrons, the neurons. Okay, so where am I? So there could be, we all are different. So there could be some free will. So this free will, from where this free will comes in. So we have tried to explain, or we may be trying to raise some intuitive measures about that. So I'll come to that later on. So our vision of the brain
Well, if you
is,
could press, sorry to interrupt, but if you could press that button again, was it F5?
yes.
Shift F5 to get to that one.
Yeah.
So okay. So so this is our vision of the brain. How can the human brain, composed of hundreds of billions of individual neurons, produce a single mind, a single consciousness? When I see some apple, I do not see about the color, or we cannot just tell about the fragrance. We talk about the whole entity. Okay, so there should be something synchronized there, which gives us the the sense of an apple. So instead of considering the brain as a vast computer processing and storing information in individual neurons, as the new model depicts the brain harnessing together ever-shifting neuronal networks which work in a complex pattern of synchrony, like musicians in an orchestra. The process of thought is a symphony produced by the brain as a whole. It is more powerful than quantum computer and so progress by higher level synchronization and desynchronization of arguments. Therefore, we also ignore the concept of information defined for a computer. Evolution and computation should be separated. Now, how would we approach? So seeing is believing, but you are easily deceived by your visual system. The visual information provided by your eyes can be ambiguous. Seeing is a constructive process. Now, what do you see here? This one, the left-hand side and the right-hand side. What about the darkness and the brightness? You see, the strip inside, at the middle position, this is uniformly, illuminated. But because of the background, it is showing like that. The left-hand side is, little bit bright and right hand side little bit dark. But actually that we see here like this. What do you see here? Here you see a triangle. But actually, there is no such triangle. We perceive this because of the structure. We perceive this as one triangle. Okay, so this is our brain is making this. So what you see is not really there. It is what your brain believes is there. So in some cases, your beliefs may turn out to be wrong. Your brain makes the best interpretation it can according to previous experience and the limited and ambiguous information provided by your eyes. Okay, so evolution has seen to that your brain usually does this with remarkable success. Partial failures of the visual system can give useful clues about the way the system is organized. Now, what do we see here? Space here. But how do you know that? Because there are different compartments, 4 compartments. Okay, so there could be for different images, but our brain is making it, okay, as a single entity. So your brain groups 4 parts together and interprets them as a single object, the space. Okay, here also the rows and the columns we see is the columns because the distance between the successive points is less than the what you see in the adjacent way. Okay, so that is our brain makes it. So we tend to group together things that are close to one another and more distant from other similar objects. Okay, so now coming to this, interpretation of these nerve cells, the myelinated and non-myelinated neuron. Okay, so it's covered by sheets of lipid material, the myelin, and there are different, methods or different ways to look after these. The electrophysiology, engineering point of view, when is the engineers try to build an artificial neuron using semiconductors, and applying mathematical viewpoint, build quantitative models, explain that some characteristics of results. Okay, so that is how we are modeling it. So we modeled it. It was about the paper we referred to, the memory paper. So the theoretical possibility of dynamic changes in action propagation is intriguing as it provides an additional layer of computing power to the neuron. A myelinated action can be modeled as a lossy transmission line of infinite periodic structure and regarded as a cascade of identical cells. These things with ideas we have to develop. This year also, I will show that later on. That modified this for the microtubule also, and some back-propagated dendrites and all these. And we had also, try to find out the nature of the wave. And we got some kind of a block wave that is our, somehow we mathematically and also what do you call the intuitively probably we got this kind of solution, which we are very, very interested to explore, particularly with any experimental groups, if it is possible. So initially, this is an old model of the transmission line. You can see each cell is a 2-port composed of parallel admittance Y and transmission line segments, length d/2 at each side of the admittance. The admittance of each cell plays the role of runway mode, and the model would be adopted where Y equal to G plus J omega C, the conductance and capacitance. Now, the runway mode nodes cause the neural transmission delay, which is crucially important for a realistic model. And periodic structures are described by the so-called block impedance. This would be very, very meaningful. I would refer to some acupuncture. People they used to do the acupuncture there. Most probably, some mechanical. The relief of pain is being due to the match of these loads of the transmission lines. So I have described that. The periodic structures are described by the so-called block impedance. The characteristic impedance Z0 of the transmission line do not depend on the point where it is measured. The block impedance is different if the terminal planes of the unitary cell are shifted a distance L in the Z direction. Okay, so this is the expression for the impedance. This happens because the Z within the standard transmission line theory. This happens because the lines are loaded and multiple reflections exist between the runway nodes. Now the block impedance, let's not forget these reflections, giving one a simple functional parameter that could be useful in neuroengineering. The conductance matches the nodes with the internodal segments approximately, which is enough and at least much better than if there were no loss at all. So if ZB equal to Z0, then ZB prime equal to Z0. But any shift of the cell trains input impedance to the adjoint is therefore roughly the same at any point. So if we can apply this type of theoretical model to explain psychological behavior, that could be the starting point to build a block. Several such blocks may finally succeed in reducing psychological phenomena to neurobiological electrophysiological phenomena and could eventually lead to a rational understanding of the phenomenon of consciousness. Several researchers have proposed that acupuncture may work via an electromagnetically based mechanism, although yet it is not that established. The transmission line axon model discussed above gives a satisfactory solution regarding the pain relief mechanism. When there is a match in impedance between the brain, the load, and the equivalent impedance along the axon, pain is not felt. When there is a mismatch in impedance between the axon and the constant electrical impedance of the brain, pain is felt. The insertion of the acupuncture needles induces a capacitive effect along the axon, which results in the mitigation of pain as it creates a better match in impedance between the brain and the axon by reducing the reflections seen by the input nerve propagation towards the brain.
Can I ask a question
So,
there? So
yes.
you make a big leap there, it seems, in terms of inferring this mechanism as producing pain. Can you explain more why that particular physical change would induce this subjective experience of pain?
Yeah, whenever you are putting this needle and all this, that's the transmission line. So you can see this shift of the impedance, the terminal impedance and all this. So whenever we match a transmission line, whenever it is connected, so that is being transferred there. So whenever there is a match, you can transfer this so that it is not going back to the brain. So whenever it is going back to the brain, that means through the nervous system, you feel the pain. Otherwise, it will be not. Okay, so there is a mismatch. Whenever there is a mismatch, also you can also later on we'll also discuss about the regarding the frequency. Or whenever it is a little bit disrupted from there, you may heal it using the little bit of low frequency. I'll discuss about that low frequency so that it will bring back the original level whenever it is disrupted or maybe little bit diseased. Then if it brings back the original position, original conditions, then there could be some healing effect. Okay. So in the emerging field of bioelectromagnetics, it is understood that endogenous electromagnetic fields regulate physiological states, biological and circadian rhythms, and endocrine functions. Such EM fields have the distinguishing feature of being very low level, low frequency, similar to those generated in the body by acupuncture. Low frequency and intensity exogenous electromagnetic fields can stimulate and regulate physiological processes such as bone bending, cell division, and wound healing. Now, perhaps the acupuncture, which I was referring to, works in part by restoring disrupted oscillatory signals, thereby adjusting the physiological functioning back to normal. This can also be explained by the transmission line axon model. Periodic structures may be analyzed in terms of the forward and backward propagating waves that can exist in each unit cell. So, for a block wave propagating in the plus z direction, the periodic structure must be terminated in a load. Okay, so the ZL, which is I was referring to, ZB plus equal to Z bar, to avoid a reflected wave. Similarly, the matched load termination for a block wave propagating in the minus z direction is minus Z bar minus. So without matching, we'll get three-dimensional standing wave formed in the region. Some disorders in the organism give rise to deformation in the three-dimensional standing wave structure, which influences corresponding changes in spatial structure of the acupuncture system and consequently its resonance frequency, resulting in some disease. So during the therapy, I mentioned this because there's also the resonance frequency, so that's why I started with this. During the therapy, the excited acupuncture system of the patient is relaxing to the previous healthy condition while reaching its normal resonance frequency response. But obviously, the experimental group can, do more of, it is very rigorously and maybe using some patients. Uh, this one. Okay. So it is obvious that some physical change must take place in the nervous system when you learn something new. It is so we argue that brain waves can be treated block, which may provide important mechanisms for a large scale integration required between the constantly interacting areas of the brain. And the periodic structures may be analyzed in terms of the forward and backward propagating waves. So we would come to that. So the amplitude of the forward and backward, we can write down these, equations, which would yield the solution for the block wave. These are the requirements we have done. We'll come to that also because we had extended this in the later on publications. So this is the block wave requirement, and we solved this, and we got the non-trivial solution for the coefficients only if the determinant vanishes. So consequently, we got these equations A11, A22, minus A12. So I'm not going into this. So since the determinant of the transmission matrix is 1 when normalized wave amplitudes are used, the block wave which can propagate in the periodic structure is made up from forward and backward propagating normal transmission line or wave guide wave that exists between discontinuity when gamma is the determinant from the equation 3. Okay, so the periodic structure determining the load impedance at the nth terminal plane, because it is a periodic structure, so nth terminal plane is shown by this figure where it is terminated. The superposition of incident and reflected block wave, you have the corresponding impedance, the nth one. So using the transmission line model, you can calculate this and you can show. Now, the resultant plot is the Brillouin diagram. This is very crucial according to us, because this kind of thing, when we talk about the Brillouin diagram, we have the different zones. We have the pass band, stop band like characteristics. Okay, so some frequency is existing, some frequency is not. Some it is stopping some frequency, it is allowing some frequency. So the pass band, stop band characteristic is the existence of frequency bands throughout which a wave propagates unattenuated along the structure separated by frequency bands throughout which the wave is cut off and does not propagate. There is a possibility that it would explain some behavioral characteristics to be explored later. So this is the thing we talk about the pass band and stop band. You have the different wave numbers, or according to that you can restrict the regions. Okay, so according to that, Brillouin zone 1, 2, 3, like that you can calculate. Now we have extended this a new detailed outlook towards study of dendrites possible because of advancement of experimental techniques. Existing view of neural information processing continues to be based on mainly passive properties of the membrane drawn from the implementation of linear cable theory to dendrites. However, nonlinear models have been suggested to adjust new experimental proof. So owing to the protein polarization producing intercellular capacitive effects, passive dendrites devoid of voltage gated ion channels, if modeled as linear cables, can become active. So we have modeled this like this, some with some active part. So the inclusion is this, you have the extra ZB part, and we had calculated the unit comprises of the impedance ZA and the admittance YC of the axon and the membranes, and the pi part has been introduced to make the passive membrane a protein polarized active one with the distributed backward wave transmission line having the feedback and coupling terms through ZB and YD. This is a modified form of a transmission line model used earlier, where the theory of wave propagation in periodic structures and Bloch's theorem have been used in connection with neuroscience, yielding the voltage and current block waves, which can be found in terms of the different resistances, capacitances, and frequency. the properties of transmission structure can be obtained considering the properties of the unit cell, which are repeated to form a cascade. So here we had modeled this one using the this particular block, the equations where we have solved for this. The block wave should be in the form of the first equation. Then we had the homogeneous system of equations. We have solved the non-trivial solution. If it would if a minus e to the power I gamma mu p square minus b equal to 0. I would show you the paper later on. I have not done here everything on the PPT. Also given that these conditions for the periodic structures. So we got the current and voltage constructions, expressions. So just to show how we are determined the corresponding coefficients, I have restricted only to the first one. I show in the paper how we have done that. So the advantage of using these models, having a limited number of variables over a detailed biophysical system with an exuberance of variables is that it empowers us with an intuitive and qualitative view about the basic process without going into every single detail of it. Given the huge computational load of simulating the dynamics of hundreds of neurons, such simplified models could throw light on the basic principles at the cost of lesser quantitative predictions. Okay. So here we got, I will show that in the paper, we got some kind of normalized block wave mode as a function of distance has been obtained. Okay. So this is very important. According to me, ask this with the block wave constant, which is, I think, which could explain many of these physical activities and the experimental group. Maybe they can shed some light on this. As multiple frequency bands of brain material signify the presence of multiple clocks, it also requires continuity in the imaginary spatiotemporal field, which may arise only through functional integration. And consciousness could be a result of these, and it is in the form of an envelope. Perturbation in the form of couplings would change the decision due to the information flow from the imaginary space and time. It could be possible consciousness is a solitonic transmission from higher dimensions to lower dimensions, manifested by block waves, formed by resonance produced by couplings through small perturbations. In this case, a small perturbation may bring great change in the final result, which I talked about with free will, making it unpredictable. Otherwise, everything would be predictable in the same manner. How it is different. So there could be some coupling, some kind of thing which is inducing the block to collapse there, and then the couplings to bring the somehow some kind of decision or whatever the how you perceive individually, that may result into that. Okay, so I would just like to continue a little bit about this, then I'll go to some papers. So neurons in a brain region, this is the neuron, the synaptic contacts into the neurons in distant region. I already talked about that. These regions are far apart, yet they're functionally connected in the form of synchronized neuronal firing. And disruption of the functional connectivity is a major cause of mental disorders. Okay, so the long-range synchronization, which is available here, or which is shown over here, is suggests the wireless communication. The different regions of the brain or the alpha, beta, delta, gamma, there would be some kind of synchronization to form some kind of emotion or perception. Now, phase synchronization is essential for cognitive processing. Okay, also facilitate the long-range communication. The brain has been able to achieve zero time-lapse synchronization between distant areas. This is remarkable considering the axonal conduction and synaptic transmission cause time delay. For instance, it takes about 30 milliseconds for a nerve impulse to travel from one hemisphere to the other to myelinated action in the corpus callosum, and 150 to 300 milliseconds to unmyelinated action. Okay, so neurons can also be stimulated by electromagnetic waves which supports the wireless communication in the brain. The electromagnetic energy could be absorbed by microtubules, the receiving antennas, and transduced by the membrane-bound microtubule associated proteins into depolarization, thereby increasing neuron excitability. So the neurons, they could be treated as the bioantennas. We would come to this later stage. The carrier frequency used in brain communication, the frequency of electromagnetic wave radiated from neurons is determined as a single channel current, the voltage gated sodium and potassium channel. The single channel current is about 1 to 4 ampere, 10 to the minus 12. And ampere is 6 into 10 to the power 18 electron charge per second. So about 10 to the power 7 ions can pass through a single channel within a second. Each ion passing through a channel will generate a pulse. The interval between two consecutive ions is then equal to 10 to the minus 7 seconds, corresponding to frequency of 10 megahertz. So interestingly, microtubules have the very vibrational modes around 10 megahertz. This supports the idea that the microtubules would serve as the receiving antenna, which may directly absorb the electromagnetic energy radiated from excited neurons. And then this is the, that from the internet, we got this one, very interesting case. Somebody, this Williams Gage was helping to build a railway when there was an explosion. Very sad incident, and iron bar went through his head, but amazingly enough, Gage survived. However, his personality changed completely as a result. Before, he was a hardworking, well-liked, and sober individual. Afterwards, he was a foul-mouthed drunkard who could not keep to any single job. It turns out that it damaged the specific front part of his brain, changed his identity. Although it's a sad story, it reveals some very interesting things about the mind. First, the brain and the mind are not completely independent. Changing one of them can change the other. The studies like these tell us that different parts of the brain have different functions, and by understanding how the brain works, we might be able to understand the nature of the mind. So this is antenna part, microtubules, the peaks. If we on the Dr. Bandyopadhyay, his group had done that in 2010 and 12. So we will come to this later on, the different peaks, how we can get to megahertz. So we also extend theoretically some of this.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is that that first image A? Can you go back to the image? Just hit the back arrow.
Okay. This one?
Yeah, so that first image A, is that actually is that a microtubule showing like a deformation state, two different states of the same microtubule?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
And you're suggesting that's connected to the membrane of the cells. So as the microtubule resonates with different EM frequencies, they can actually change the polarization potential of the membrane.
Yes, this was the experiment done by Dr. Bandyopadhyay, their group in 2001. So this was, his data. So I had taken it from his data, so I referred it. This one in 2012 we had done this. So experimentally, this data was found, and we got these peaks. You see 12, 22, 36 up to 28, and theoretically we had explained. I will show that paper. We explained the origin of these peaks. So they are basically the microtubules. They are communicating, okay, so wirelessly, and that is very, very interesting, result. And also we had done in the second half. I will show the different, antennas, biological antennas. There are two parts. One will be the biological antennas, starting from the insect size wasp. They are having some kind of antennas which is radiating the infrared region or the TNS or the different parts of the brain. We have found out some method to get the resonant frequency of that, which is very, very important, because whenever we talk about the range where we scan kilohertz to say gigahertz or terahertz biological system. Now, there it is very difficult to design a single experiment. There's a lot of time or energy or money involved. So we have developed a method. Theoretically, we can somehow calculate the resonant frequencies and give beforehand. This will be the frequency of that particular structure or different proteins. Even we can take the protein data for the protein data. We have taken lots of proteins, and these are the resonance frequencies. That would be very, very important, because when you talk about the nanomedicine or the, say, resonance therapy and all these, we can exactly pinpoint the frequencies to some extent. Most of the data we have checked with the literature, what we had predicted, matching with that, and also experimentally done in NIMS lab, some of the structures. Now this would be very, very important to have something, say nanoboard, something there inside the system. So if we can from outside, we can provide this kind of frequency. There could be some supramolecular resonance, something like that, which could be translating that of energy. So instead of chemical biology, it is there will be paradigm shift to the physical biology. Okay, and with the resonance, or with the supply, the supply of the energy, we can avoid, because normally in whenever we talk about the neurotransmitters or something, it is destroying the good cells also. Say I have some cancer disease, a cell. Now I would supply some neurotransmitter or chemically also to destroy most of the good cells. Now if we have some physical part, so it will avoid in between ones, exactly that amount of energy go to the next level. So that could be very, very important for the nano drug delivery and all this. Little bit I would show one or two results which are published in some paper form in the second. Okay, so the recent discovery of quantum vibrations in brain microtubules in warm conditions by Oliver Mandapathy and his team at NIMS, Japan, and at Amity indicates that relying blindly on Hodgkin-Huxley type neuron bursts for the explanation of the neural information models entirely would stand a serious challenge. It would have far-reaching consequences. For example, it could be possible to relate brainwaves in terms of the underlying action vibration. This discovery of microtubule resonant oscillation that could vibrate axion neuron could form the very basis of EEG rhythms, whose underlying mechanism is still mystery, and eventually on the practical side can lead to different neurobiological and cognitive disorders. So that could be very, very important. So I would here share first I'll share this one, and then I'll show some papers, then I'll go to the second part. So this is the physical, and maybe some internet problem here. So that's a little bit delayed. So physical analogies in biology, from photons to phonons, of block waves to nonlinear oscillators. Okay, so I just 2-3 papers I'll show here. The because some parts are that is general parts we have done. So I will try to show one part, the microtubules and the neuronic the microtubules. Okay, so here the microtubules we are talking about this method. We had extended this method, the block waves, the neuronic crystals. Okay, so here we had extended the method I was referring to, and this is the equation, the normal transmission line ABCD matrix. We have used the periodic structures, and we had solved for these. And you see that I did not want to put into the PPTs and all these calculations. We had these calculations, and we had arrived at the this one using these realistic data of the different resistances and capacitances of this, the normalized block wave mode. So here we had calculated using this, extended model, what I had shown during the memory paper description, using the black propagation and all this. So we got some normalized block wave mode as a function of the distance. So this is very interesting result we got. Other part I'm not going into, because we have talking about the analogies in general, photons, phonons, block waves to nonlinear oscillators. So I would go to another paper slowly. So this is the block wave concept. But I understand the memory paper that time we, it is also we also did not so much that in that concept, but we had extended it, modified this block wave concept and transmission line model based on protein polarized dendrites. It has a dielectric waveguide resonator. So my scholar Pushpendra Singh, and we had the collaboration with University of Montreal, Dr. Logan, Professor Pabart, and Oniman. This year it has been published in Indian Journal of Physics, and we also, this is the concept of this a block wave also we had done using this solid, because this is the calculation, okay, for the neural system. So we had extensively calculated the modes there. So basically these calculations using the normal wave propagation and electric and magnetic field calculations. So this is a neural system you can see, and we had calculated, we had first frame this equation. You see, this is the corresponding transmission line, where we had done the corresponding different media we had taken, and the propagation is coming on there. And then we had considered the neighbor cell and the partial differential form we have taken, and using these calculations we can just I'm referring to this. What we got, that is important, that we got here. You see, for the membrane one, there are different soliton wave amplitude. It's a function of velocity and depends on the properties of membrane components R and C. The membrane properties always have the varying values by passing the electrical signal or generating neural oscillation. Okay, so we got, if 1 by RC0 whisker greater than equal to 1, the wave amplitude would be negative or 0 in this case. Wave dissipates the energy during its passage through the periodic zone. Wave tries to return to the initial value of energy from the surrounding space. If it is less than equal to 1, the wave's amplitude would be positive. In that case, the wave has sufficient magnitude of energy for passing the periodic zone. A part of the propagating energy reflects back, and some of it is transmitted through the periodic zone. Okay. So similarly, the soliton wave propagates in the neural branches and the neuron microstructures and has the solution of nonlinear cable equation. The octane solution is discussed in terms of the soliton wave that propagates. You can see we have found this nonlinear cable equation. Then we had solved for that. Then the space constant, then the corresponding equations, and the electric and magnetic fields here using the Maxwell's equation, solving the Maxwell equation for different media. We had done that. Okay, so you can see the corresponding Maxwell equations we have solved here, electric field equation and the magnetic field equations. Because it is dielectric resonator, you can set the situation model of the T mode, and after solving, we got the general solution. So I would be very, very happy if if these things, because I have talked to some experimental groups here, but we could not proceed regarding this using some kind of real system where people could explore this kind of thing here. So I would be very, very happy if somebody is interested in this one, the block wave concept, and can explore the findings here. So this is the block wave. Whatever. It's visible, not. Oh, there's again the same problem.
Yeah, I see a
Is it visible?
large
Is it
black
visible?
rectangle.
Okay, now it's okay. So now you see, this is the soliton's wave, okay? And this velocity, at the point of constant phase in x-axis direction, we got this equation. So basically, the superposition of all waves we got, and then we solved this, and we got the energy, the periodic zones, okay? Case for different cases, I have mentioned different cases. So case 1, case 2, and again, we had solved these equations and we got very good, simple equation like that. Very, very interesting equation we got. So I think this, the conclusion I should read out. The main objective of the study was to understand the nature of the soliton wave. Along with the unit cell transmission line model, I will send these papers. I will just send you after this talk. I will send these papers. Along with the unit cell transmission line model of protein polarized dendrites and neuron microstructure, numerical calculations carried out for the detection of soliton waves with varying amplitude and phase. The soliton wave propagation mechanism, along with the periodic zone, was studied. Phenomenon based on block wave tunneling of the soliton energy packet was successfully described in the test when the protein transmission line model serves as a dielectric waveguide. From the observation, it is evident that there is only a slight variation in energy and wavelength of the wave during its passage through the periodic zone. Okay, so very, very interesting thing. Because just this year we had this paper. So I would stop here. This one, I will show the last paper I want to show. Then I go to the next, already 7:44. So, okay, so this is the very recent paper. This is 2 months back. So crystals, microtubules as one-dimensional crystals. Each crystal structure the key to information processing of living systems. I will send this paper to you.
Yeah, do
so that
send
you
this.
can
That's lovely.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So I just, so as I was talking about the, this part and the resonances and all these, we had been, working on this biological antenna. There are two parts. One
Can
is
you
the
expand it
biological
again,
antenna.
Kanad? Can you make it large
Yes,
again?
yes, yes, yes. Okay, so you can see the, in nature, you have these symmetries and the fractal symmetries and the Fibonacci structure. So we had actually built, biomimic this structure in different form of antennas. Basically, we have made a lot of antennas using this kind of being influenced from nature, by nature, and these particularly fractal and Fibonacci structures we have made. So another part is that we also had some biological, cells or insects or components which are naturally occurring, and we try to find out the corresponding the resonant peaks and all these to understand the system, which is, in biomaterials, it is not easy always to get the antenna because it has to radiate. So there should be some kind of, properties that just can do maybe formed, and maybe some resonators are there, but not always antennas. So these things are there. We try to explore those things. So this is one, one of the scholars, he had done this, using the Fibonacci structure, the sunflower structure. He made one antenna, and then we found, lots of good applications of this for satellite and all these, the sunflower antenna. Then we can see the meticulously executed antenna design, the biological design. You can see the retinas and, rods and cones in the retina. We had, mimic them. Then the DNA, then the OAS, you can see. In case of the center, in case of the rods and cones, you see the center field dipole antennas. In case of DNA, the spectral cavity resonators. In case of OAS, it is infrared angle. Very interesting. We got almost radar equation there to be satisfied. When we have two ones, okay, they are communicating. Say when 5 meters apart, we got the equations of the theoretical data we got from the literature. But again, I tried to contact some biological groups and biotechnology groups to perform this experiment, but I failed. So if somebody is there interested, or maybe I do not know. Here we tried, but we could not experimentally do that. But already the data we got from literature we had, and depending on that, we had to train our model and predict something. Then we saw, see the Fibonacci structures. Whenever something is being, it is completed, the structure is completed, then the energy, how the resonant peaks are there, and how the maximum amount of energy being transferred, that part we have shown using the structure. So England's law of self-replication. Okay, during the structural development process of biological material, the entropy of energy distribution in the structure increases. So we had tried to examine that or explore that, the structural symmetry of our body or the structural symmetry of DNA. You can see we had used the step-by-step upgradation of the particular component structure, and calculated the simulated the electric and magnetic fields, and got the different resonant frequencies. We're very happy to discover, but I have this time, little time base. So here it is the structure, got these frequencies. You can see the structure, how the frequency structure is being used to find out. At the final stage, each stage you can see the peaks, very prominent peaks, and sharp peaks are there. Then we had done all this with the complete dielectric resonator model of human brain, neuron, connectome, cerebral square, blood vessel. We had published all these papers in at different frequency levels, different bands we got, and tested some of this data, predicted some of building the model. So the electrical magnetic rhythms in the centriole and this form, this biomaterial, the magnetic field, electric field. What we got, very interesting thing we got in some of the biological some entities, we got the separation of electric and magnetic field. They are distributed differently, but I do not have time, so I could not discuss on that. The very, very important property you got, that they are they're localized in different manner. So electric and magnetic field inside the biomaterials in living creature, we got this. We will be happy to discuss on that later on. So we got these, the centriole, the clocking behavior of the electric and magnetic field at the resonant frequency, energy source applied at transverse direction, energy source applied along the longitudinal direction, so magnetic field and electric field, you can get these structures. Then I was talking about the biomimic antenna. So we have done plenty these kind of structures, because these are used for particular applications, specific applications. And when you go to the bio-inspired models for a particular application, maybe in some cases they are very, very specific and can work better than the conventional one. So this is our branch structure, the 21 branch Synchronization branch. This Fibonacci structure, you can see how it, for there. Then we had all these papers have been published in optic, that journal. So this is the plant one, this is the plate petal, the DNA structure. Then the protein, that's for the protein was believed to vibrate mechanically, and ionic transmission governed by electric potential believed to be the key feature of the protein operation. The concept has recently been challenged, and it has been argued that the proteins vibrate in presence of electromagnetic signal like a cavity resonator. Since we have now evidence that proteins vibrate electromagnetically, we can revisit the electromagnetic interaction with the cells, considering the whole cell as a cavity resonator. So biomaterials are the insulators. Whether insulators have any potential to radiate like a metallic antenna or not depends on multiple factors. An antenna emits electromagnetic signals only when the standing wave form absorbs identical multiple of its energy in the cavity, and only radiation resistance is very low. But insulators like biomaterials, they do not have highly reflecting metallic outer boundaries. Electromagnetic signal multiple times develops high quality factor, produces the equivalent standing wave. Our attempt to theorize that biomaterials could also act as an antenna improves the factor that even such insulated biomaterials would somehow produce standing waves. Okay, again some problem. Using freely, then we just because I have little time. Using freely available MRI data of structural components of the human brain, we got take this. We had taken the data from Roger Join the freely available data. We had built this structure, we had shown the actual structural database of the human brain component, for example, neural network and all these. So these we had done. In previous studies, we have argued that every single element in the brain behaves. I have to, I think, it's very disturbing. We actually, what we are advocating was the scale P resonance. Okay, because whenever we have the fractal structure is scale P, so that we are trying to advocate. So from MRI derived structure to simulate the resonance frequency distribution of electric and magnetic field of the brain component in CST, the software detect the phase response behavior, especially phase transition and symmetry breaking as a function of resonance frequency. We find that electric and magnetic field distribute inhomogeneously in the dielectric structure. Okay, that I was talking about. They inhomogeneously there. So the resonance frequency is topological pattern. So that is very important. That I was talking about whether the fractal nature is clue to the the hidden fractal natures of the this kind of things, the clue to the cognition and the consciousness could be possible. I would refer to this. So this is the the way we are simulating the electromagnetic resonance spectra. You can see the UAS rate, then the DNA, then the different proteins. We can talk about different proteins. You can see the cryptochrome protein is very, very important because I want just one problem. We are just now came to our mind because of some Einstein's letter published few days back regarding the birds navigation. Okay, so he had sent that to referring to fish. Okay, regarding the birds navigation, the magnetic field is there in the beak, so that they can navigate. The miles apart, they can move using that. So there could be some kind of magnetic compass there. So could be if I study this cryptochrome protein and all this, could be possible. The distribution of the electric and magnetic field would give some clue. So we had just been interested in that problem. I do not know. Just we had started regarding the cryptochrome protein, how this electric and magnetic field. Also, interestingly, we can get the electric and the surface current and all this and the resonance frequency, because normally the antennas when we make the gain, the S11 and everything, we can make using this. So that is similar to that normal antenna. So this is the simulation analysis of the kinesin, cytoplasm. So this is basically different proteins we can do. We can take the one from the protein database, and I have 1 minute left. So the protein database, from there we can calculate. We have developed methods, simulation methods, and we can transfer that, and we can get these frequencies and all these in distribution. Okay. So here we can also, we can show this, the clocking behavior of these. Very interesting clocking behavior we got when we talked about the electric and magnetic fields. They're behaving differently. Okay. So just go on to applications. I can say I have 1 minute. Beyond the chemical drugs and agent that cures defects, physically with an atomic precision. Okay. So when this, in case of cancer or Alzheimer, these two papers are published in this, Royal Society of Chemistry, PCCP, and current medicinal, tropical medicine. So I do not have time. So these are the, the resonance and all this. You can see the how to tackle these problems. So that would be the applications of this kind of studies when we talk about the destroying the cancer cells using this kind of nano robot. So this is the quantum resonance we are talking about. So thanks. And if we have any, so I think I finished.
Well, thank you, Kanand. That's a lot of information, and I know it's less time than you wanted, but really interesting stuff. And please do send the papers you mentioned, and if you can send that presentation also, the second one, and we can look it over. And I think we'll be in touch with any more questions we have, and love to learn more, because I think this is a very small sample of your work, obviously, so there's a lot there.
Yes.
and a lot to digest, and the connection today wasn't great either. So love to chat with you more at a later date.
Thank you so much. Very impressive set of ideas and findings. Really very impressive. Thank you very much.
So I'll be interested, if some, if you suggest something, because as, Dr. Hunt told, the first paper, it was not cited. Even we did not cite that one. We worked on some other things, but, it was just, kept there, solo paper by me in 2012. Then when he pointed out, then I thought, okay, because that we extended and modified. So I thought that the other things also should include there. So that's why the first part I had taken. And in the second part. So maybe some of you are very, very experienced and renowned. So that's why, you can suggest us if you have anything in your mind, later on we'll interact. So, and also if we can design some experiments, because some of the things, particularly I love to explore the block wave concept, because theoretically we had done that, mathematically we calculated and so on, but experimentally in neuroscience, as I understand, it is not been, in a sense that block waves been categorically measured or something like that. So it could be possible that with your help, we can proceed, in this direction.
Yeah.
One other thing, I expect you already know about this, but we're working on a special issue for Frontiers on electromagnetic theories of consciousness. And some component of this work would be very appropriate for that special issue. So we'd invite you to submit something. This is spot on.
Yes. Yes, Dr. Hunt has told me. Yes. I would definitely have sent.
Okay,
Okay,
I have to run.
Great.
Lovely to meet
Thanks
you.
again,
Bye, everybody.
everyone. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Kanand. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and colleagues, add a comment, and subscribe for additional content. We'll see you next time.